Welcome to 6 Feet in the Six. I'm your host, Jeff Barrett with Business Interiors. Thank you for joining us today. The purpose of this interview series is for the close-knit Toronto commercial real estate industry to share ideas and best practices in order to help everyone get back to the office safely and efficiently. Joining us today is Andrew Garrett, Senior Principal, Real Estate Portfolio with the Investment Management Corp of Ontario. Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Jeff. Great to see you.
Can you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So I work as the executive for IMCO. So we own, manage, and develop about $11 billion of real estate globally to benefit Ontario pensioners. My primary focus is overseeing teams of asset managers and looking to grow the portfolio with new development partners in major global cities.
It's great. And personally, how are you managing?
Managing okay. So just, I know the recording will be later, but today was kind of the second day back at school for my kids. I have a 10-year-old and 6-year-old. And so we've been managing with them home and everyone getting their own Zoom invites and trying to figure that out. And now we're figuring out the back to school program right now.
So this normally would have been a little noisier in your house if this was
this is the quietest it's been in my house all year, essentially. So yeah, they're back, and my wife's a principal, so she's back in the game as well.
Oh wow, everyone's at school.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show us what face mask you've been rocking?
This is one of my favorites. There, it's the Dwayne Johnson, the Rock. Under Armour one. It's been fun. He's been a bit of I haven't been following him on Instagram, but I used to, and I remember how he used to always have these posts about his iron paradise. So I think this is kind of appropriate for COVID times of just making the most of wherever you are.
So Andrew, in a new segment on the show, we take a deep dive on the guest LinkedIn account and look for posts that need more context. 6 months ago, you had a great post says we are continuing to grow our portfolio in these uncertain times, and you're going to be investing in affordable housing and new build industrial. This is a great post, and it's really exciting to see these types of investments taking place during the pandemic. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, Jeff. We, going into a pandemic, you end up with the contingency plan you had before. So I think it would have been tough for us to manage to continue investing unless we had done some things in advance to allow us that latitude. And so our team had worked hard, and we had a contingency plan that in the case that markets were a bit uncertain, we could still continue on. And we had this affordable housing investment in the pipeline before, and had saw the opportunity that we could, with our partner KingSett, to continue with this opportunity. So they had this property in Etobicoke, actually, where I kind of born and raised, and so not far from where I went to middle school. And this was a great property near transit, and would be a good opportunity for, we thought, affordable, which in Toronto we always have to put quotes because 80% or so the median salary is still would be a challenge for some, but it is more approachable than what's out there for a lot of people. And we're able to put together this investment with KingSett, and also I think with the help of some of the CMHC financing that became available, as well as the government had prepared for the pandemic. So with the partnership with the government, our private equity partner, and IMCO, we were able to move forward on a project during the middle of last summer.
Can you tell us about your book of business and how it's been affected by COVID-19?
Yeah, we have on the real estate portfolio, we kind of have two books. I look at it. a recent amalgamation of OPB and WSIB pension plans. So those are our two major clients, and those assets, when we combine them, definitely had a challenging year for COVID. I think, along with the overall real estate portfolios of many, I would say more than 3/4 of our $11 billion portfolio is in Canada, and of that, there's a large exposure to retail. And so, as you can imagine, we had shopping centers closing across about 7 provinces and going through closing and reopening procedures. And so I would say that had a dramatic impact to our performance. But again, it was working with our asset managers in a way that we haven't had to before. And so I feel I know the teams better than I've ever known them. We've been through a lot of challenges, and we've kind of come out the other side now.
What are some of the new requests that you've had from your clients?
It is interesting. A lot of just fundamental requests that you wouldn't have. I think, so many things like rent collections are almost an automatic in a month-to-month scenario. But this pandemic has created some requests where people wanted to dive in to really understand collections and what's the structure. So we're able to provide that and highlight those, and again, sensitivity around health and safety, that again, an area where you kind of took it for granted. We really are able to present how we were following these practices across different provinces, and how you're able to kind of juggle sometimes the protocols from province and municipality had some areas where you need some additional clarity. So we wanted to update our clients as to how we were being responsive in those areas.
Can you tell us about some of the projects that you're involved in and how they may have changed course during 2020?
I would say you'll quite often, we've been hearing about how the pandemic has accelerated patterns that had already existed. And so one of the areas where, especially in retail, we're looking to create more experience when you visited, and having a lot of, say, restaurant touch points, gyms, certain things that would create some more engagement, because we wanted there to be a reason to leave. And when people can click and buy, you want to create some interaction. So I would say we still think long term that still makes sense in the future of retail. However, in some projects we've had to look at not necessarily expanding that footprint, where before I think we were looking to expand and make more experiential spaces. I think a lot of projects we're just kind of keeping that as is, and waiting for the environment to progress, waiting for more clarity on how vaccine rollouts are and so on before making any long-term commitments to that.
So what changes do you see coming to the commercial office or the commercial tower post-vaccine?
I think there's just a focus of the reason to be there. What's my reason to be there, and how do I want to spend my time in that area? And it's going to be more flexible. And I think probably from my background, I had worked in the hotel industry for a long time. And I feel that some of the focuses of hospitality are some of the areas that I see becoming more and more prevalent in more commercial office space, and bringing it into commercial retail space as well. The hotels in an environment where people come to learn, they come to meet, they come to network, they come to eat, and they have food and beverage experiences. And so they've tried to wrap that experience in many different brand levels as well. And so there's no one size fits all. There's certain luxury brands, there are certain limited service brands. And so I see that really kind of being infused in other asset classes that you didn't necessarily see that. And again, it is that because they've had to survive on very flexible spaces, but it can't be commodity. And so I think that's our challenge is you have to provide something that's not a commodity if you expect to attract the best talent. You're looking to attract a global from a talent pool, and if you're also looking to provide, I would say, a level of credibility to shareholders, to your private partners, and also have roots in a community. And I think sometimes that's undervalued, that if you're dealing with public sector or private sector in various areas, do you have some commitment in a physical location, or can you be a bit more of a fly-by-night organization that comes in and things are going good, and at the end of a cycle leaving at the first sign of challenge.
IMCO's in a very unique position as you've been designing and building your own office over the past year, which I'm told is complete now and likely sitting empty. What were some of the thinking going into the planning of your space, considering the timing when you were doing your planning?
Yeah, there was a lot of considerations. I think we were in 3 downtown Toronto locations. They were all, you could kind of get to each other via accessing the path, which was good, at least from that connectivity point of view. But as you can imagine, for an organization, a bit of a challenge for us. And we really were a few years into our growth, and really wanted to establish a culture, and really were looking forward to being able to do that all in one spot and have the team in one spot. And I would say a number of years ago, IMCO was less than 50 people, and now we've built out to a head office of near about 300 people or so. We're really looking forward to being able to meet all in one area and create a destination to not just be a host to all of our growing team, but also to be host our investment partners when they visit us in Toronto. And I think that is one of the areas that I'm really looking forward to. And in terms of the design, we thought having everyone in one place would also be able to help with onboarding new staff. There's a lot of people that have joined us during COVID, and so we haven't necessarily met in person, and so that's something we're getting accustomed to. And again, hosting our investment partners as they travel to Toronto, it was really tough to meet with them in the existing spaces we had, deciding which location we were going to meet. So I think we were excited about being in one location.
It's really exciting to not just get back to the office, but get back to a brand new office.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I feel like I'm having a conversation with most of my clients about is what changes do we need in the office short term? There's 2 schools of thought. One is our employees will feel safe when we have plexiglass surrounding us and sanitizer readily available, where other school of thought is, well, having that stuff so visible is going to make me feel like crap. I don't want to be in an office that looks like that. It feels like every client I talk to has a very different opinion as to where they are on that scale. How do you feel about that? I guess for your own office, but just in general as well.
No, it's a good point. I found that I think, yeah, you need to take the first step. The first step is to get back in and have a bit of a plan, and not assume that you're going to be able to um, come across the answer remotely. Because I think if we sit at home and try to design too much, how to make people comfortable, um, we're almost kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, because at the end of the day, you don't know until you try. So we are coming at it as to pilot, test, coming back to work. Um, we are going to design in certain pieces where we want people to feel, hey, it's actually safe, but also, to your point, psychologically safe. And from a larger perspective, I would say we were planning, basically the footprint we planned for initially before COVID was to provide for all of IMCO's needs plus some expansion space for us to grow in the future. And what we've now, I would say, planned from a seating area is that expansion space. We're moving into that early, so that we've de-intensified the space so that people have more space to start with. So we're kind of moving into our, I would say, kind of our existing and expansion space right away. So there's more space per person to create a bit more of that psychological safety, and actual safety, I should say, as well. And also, it is in a tower, so creating some of the elevator operations with our partner, Cadillac Fairview is the builder of the building. So again, we have a lot of trust in their expertise and figuring out how to make it feel safe in terms of the operating day-to-day of going in there. I don't expect there will be a broad occupancy right off the bat. I wouldn't be surprised if our initial trial is, say, 10% of the staff, working with them, seeing how they feel, getting feedback, and iterating from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas about who should be in the office and why. Some people say, like, you should be there just for collaboration and you and your team will meet there. I don't think collaboration happens so structured that way, and I think 10% is a great number, because you don't need to make modifications to your space at 10%, right? Like, you can just distance each other physically and through time is the best way forward. And you guys are so fortunate to have swing space that you can just expand into, right off the bat.
Right. Yeah, and I think it'll, yeah, to your point, it's hard to be prescriptive about the things that you want physical space for. You want it for innovation, for collaboration, for spontaneous meetings. So scheduling spontaneity is not the easiest thing to do.
So Andrew, in the product review section, what we were doing is getting COVID products that have come out in 2020 and reviewing their viability for the office. But we've just run out of interesting products to talk about. So I've typically been turning this portion of the show over to the guests to be able to promote something that they're working on. We just spent a bunch of time talking about your new office, and we have a great promotional video that walks us through it. And just so everyone knows, you partnered with SDI Design, very talented group led by Joanne Chan. And I know she's featured in this video. So let's run the clip and see your new office.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Joanne. I'll be speaking a little bit about the design narrative and design concept of IMCO, one of our clients that is in the midst of construction, getting their office ready. We spent a lot of time as a team with the IMCO team, really to explore the ethos of IMCO and really understand the business drivers as well as their future thinking and how they position themselves in the coming years and coming decades. We've actually distilled it to 4 pillars. 4 pillars are usability, collaboration, sustainability, and a happy workplace. Usability has a lot to do with performance-driven expectation. It should be a plug-and-play environment, as well as there's sort of this seamless integration between the space, the technology, the people that are living in it. So we really want to make sure that we actually add on additional flexibility in the space. So that was some of the drivers that were sort of dictating the usability expectation. Collaboration, of course. Even as a fund manager firm, managing sort of equity, especially in this volatile market, we understand that having the power of innovation is very important to adapt really quickly and being very agile. And one of the expectation is that we should allow not only collaboration space, but encourage collaboration within the environment. So having the seamless technology is very important. At the same time, having that sort of accidental hopefully one day we all go back to the office, but definitely having those accident greetings and the opportunity to have a coffee with your teammates, those expectations are there. And also we actually shift the function not only from just a collaboration viewpoint, but also allocate an environment that really focuses on idea generation. So there are spaces within the premise that really foster those activities. Sustainability, IMCO have chosen to move to a building that is LEED certified. So that's really important to them as a company. So a lot of our design principle and design constructability requirement are all sort of that flexibility requirement, and materiality and choices are all LEED certified. So those are a small gesture that IMCO has taken as a corporation to move that forward. And as designers, we want to complement that with a lot more sort of creativity into it, so that makes sure that space is exciting and also environmentally conscious. Last but not least, we are really focused on the happy workplace. SDI has really sort of been the advocate of creating happy places for people to go to work. One day when we all go back to work, we want to make sure that the space itself supports not only work, but also the lifestyle of the organization, the team members. And one of the layer that we've added is actually safety. So IMCO spent quite a bit of time with us when the start of the pandemic, really looking into a solution that really addresses safety, from HVAC, a mechanical system, filtration system, looking at distancing in terms of proximity of workstation, looking at how to phase people to go back to work, and also the materiality, just to reconfirm that the choices that we're making are actually smart in terms of dealing with the pandemic. So safety was another layer added on during the project, and we hope that when everybody gets back to work, they could be as happy as we think they could be in the workplace. So there's a few slides that I'm going to run through really quickly from that sort of design philosophy in transferring to real space. The design statement really was to actually look at IMCO as a beehive of activity. People who work in the IMCO organization are the bees that contribute to the bigger cause. We want to make sure that we address everybody in terms of their needs equally, not just the executive versus the team workers who are working within the organization, but rather looking at all of their needs sort of as an equal requirement. And then also we want to make sure that the space has that sort of natural element to it. So IMCO's logo looks like a bee, and looks like a flower, and we wanted to sort of address sort of that counter and say, where the worker who are in the organization are like bees that collects honey and brings back pollen, brings back to the beehive to create the liquid gold, which is the investment portfolio of the organization. So there's this sort of romantic story about how everybody's working in the same cause, and we thought the beehive really translate really nicely to IMCO's cause. Some of the design concept are daylight, having allocation for vertical penetration that is not really possible for skylights, but we mimic that sort of skylight effect within this premise to actually create that light coming through the ceiling that emphasize that atmosphere of daylight coming through, even though there's a plenty of private office and plenty of meeting space. Within the workstation area, there is sort of vertical skylight per se coming through the ceiling, and it looks kind of like you're living in a building that is a standalone. And then some of the expectation on the collaboration space. We've designed something with an idea of a vertical penetration of the stair landing on each floor to a collaborative space. And just like bridges in a city, we looked at it from a macro and a micro viewpoint. How does people connect to spaces? Obviously, the elevator is one, the internal staircase is another, but the internal sort of access stair point is definitely where the destination could be, and so we actually made each landing the destination within the premise of just the core team, not the reception area. It's really meant for connecting the collaborative energy between the floors internally away from the visitors, so that there's this sort of nice travel flow up and down when people are working together in different teams. And then obviously the last but not least is that happy workplace concept we talked about. So the material choices, as well as some of just layering the effect of nature inside glass wall building, but rather really trying to emphasize the curvature, the materiality, the lighting selection, just to sort of slightly hint that there is a balance between the outside and the inside, as we spent so much time in the inside. There is a wellness component to this. The organization has designed wellness spaces within the premise. At the same time, we want to really wait and see about the next step when we return back to work. We will actually address it with better policies in terms of how to manage those spaces. So we have the sort of end goal of trying to recreate some of the wellness activity within the organization in the office space, but we need to wait and see how do we actually curate the program alongside with our client. These are the renderings of the space. I'm going to quickly run through it. The reception and meeting center. Very simple choices of material, again, wood, stone, layering different materiality and layering different lighting effect onto it. There is an actual commission art piece we done for the client in conjunction with the University of Waterloo, the architectural department. It's not rendered here, but it will be installed in a few months' time. Looking through the corridors, we felt that the meeting space should feel more that sort of residential kind of feeling, coming back to seeing your friends. You're not walking into a private office, but rather almost like you're walking to your friend's house and having that meet and greet, and that would be sort of the feeling of the reception. Workstation and offices. Definitely we try to take that concept of a beehive, we actually implement it into the ceiling so that there is this conceptual connection between the beehive and the lighting of the general office space. The workstation has been redesigned a little bit here compared to the renderings because of COVID. There is a lot more social distancing. At the same time, there is still that sort of essence of curvature. I'm going to show you the next slide. This sort of a curvature within the premise that really felt that could, encompass sort of not only from an architectural viewpoint, but also from an aesthetic viewpoint, that we actually have a lot more acoustic to it as well, which is the curvature wood element. And then we have some acoustic treatment on the wall. And then going back to next sort of big thing, the big gesture in the project is the cafe. Definitely, we've spent a lot of energy programming the cafe. Really want to make sure that even pre or post COVID, the user of the space could feel that they can spend all day in the premise and working sort of seamlessly with consultants outside the premises, with their team members, having events one day, hopefully soon, and really sort of take advantage of this sort of beautiful space. So thank you. This is it. This is the presentation, and thank you very much for listening to our chat today. Thanks.
Andrew, is there anything else you want the Six to know about you or IMCO and how you're joining the fight against COVID-19?
Yeah, I would say, we are, as a firm, really supportive of health and safety, and we're also supportive of the building of cities. So at the end of the day, for us, we've seen cities go through a lot of trials and tribulations, and the pandemic has definitely been a strong challenge for many. But we, through a focus and a lens on long-term investing, want to find the most strategic ways for us to support the growth and the flourishing of cities. And that's going to be happening domestically, and we want to support that in Canada, and we also want to support that internationally with our investment partners abroad.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for sharing how you and IMCO are joining the fight against COVID-19. Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Enjoyed your show.
Toronto, you're the best city in the world, and we can't wait for you to feel better again. Not a lot of people know who this guy is. They think I just have a funny poster on my wall. But it's the Herman Miller picnic posters are kind of famous. They're in MoMA. And you've probably seen them before. They're these big oversized pieces of fruit on posters. And every year there's a graphic designer named Steve Frickholm who designed these posters. And he's a famous graphic designer. Like I say, he's in MoMA. And this is actually a picture of his face. He's got a big gray beard and thick glasses. And it actually says Herman Miller Picnic around his beard here. So